Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got a fascinating stack of sources in front of us today. Interviews, articles, all centered on the musician Steven Wilson Jr. And our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack a pretty unique career blueprint. How he took personal tragedy and this rigorous background in scientific research and fused them into this incredibly authentic songwriting method.
It really is a study in synthesis.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just looking at another country artist who, found some success. We're examining how he took the framework of the scientific method, something so rational, so disciplined, and applied it directly to the most chaotic human emotions you can think of. Grief, fear. He wasn't just writing songs. It feels more like he was engineering them for emotional truth.
And the roots of the story are they're so contradictory. SWJ grew up in southern Indiana, which he describes as this cultural collision point, right near Louisville.
Mm-hmm. It's a place where, what did he say, blue-collar sensibilities meet these really unique regional traditions.
Yeah, people are watching NASCAR.
But they're putting noodles in their chili?
Exactly.
And that blend of influences, the high-octane passion, maybe that quiet, traditional grit, that's so central to who he is as an artist. It explains a lot about why he was recently nominated for New Artist of the Year at the CAs. He even said himself he felt like he wasn't supposed to be there on paper.
It was an unconventional path, for sure. And that path, it really begins with his father. Okay, so let's unpack the childhood that laid all this groundwork. Steven Wilson Sr. was, by all accounts, just a force of nature.
Absolutely. A single father raising 3 kids,
Mm.
including SWJ's sister, Lacey J.
Who was named after Lacey J. Dalton, which is just a great detail.
It is. But Senior's life was just this nonstop act of necessity. The sources paint a picture of relentless hard labor.
He drove a bus, worked at a body shop.
And at the same time was a highly competitive, multi-time Golden Gloves champion boxer. He was balancing this incredibly demanding physical work with the very intimate demands of being a solo parent.
And this is the key detail for me. We learned that he was right on the cusp of turning pro, a promising boxing career. But he deliberately put it on the back burner to raise his kids. That sacrifice is, well, it's enormous. What's the emotional weight of inheriting a deferred dream like that?
It fundamentally changes the dynamic. It changes everything. We call it the generational handoff. It's not just a legacy. It becomes an inherited responsibility, almost like a relay race where the son feels this deep obligation to carry the baton, the sum of the father's effort. Senior ran his leg of the race so hard that SWJ feels like he has to start his own race from this place of intense dedication.
That sounds like immense pressure. Did the sources suggest he ever, felt crushed by that or maybe even resented it? How did that become creative fuel instead of just paralyzing anxiety?
I think it was translated through just watching his father's devotion. His adaptability. There's this one specific moment the sources highlight that just encapsulates everything. His father, after a night of brutal sparring with his eyes swollen shut, is still performing what he called feminine things, like curling his daughter's hair.
Wow.
Yeah, that image, a Golden Gloves champion, in pain, gently holding a curling iron, it shows responsibility that just transcends everything. Gender roles, pain. It's a blueprint for stepping up, no matter the cost.
And meanwhile, SWJ is just a kid quietly absorbing all of this. He called himself a nerdy kid who observed the world instead of participating in it. He learned, in his words, to thrive in loneliness.
And that quiet observation, that's crucial training for a songwriter for sure. Being able to channel all that external chaos into an internal dialogue, that takes a lot of self-reflection. But that ability to thrive alone, it was about to be tested to its absolute limit.
This is where the whole story just takes this sharp, heartbreaking turn. 7 years ago, Steven Wilson Sr. died. Suddenly. He was only 59. A pulmonary embolism. And the contributing factors were classic in a tragic way, a cowboy mentality of avoiding doctors and, the difficulties of the American healthcare system.
The loss was shocking, but also tragically rooted in something avoidable. But it's the final moments, the details of that very last conversation. That provides the ignition source for his entire artistic career. It's the moment he stopped trying to be a writer for other people and became an artist himself.
That phone call on the side of I-65 in Kentucky, it's just unforgettable. SWJ's pulled over, terrified the signal's going to drop, and his dad is completely calm. And he gives his son these 2 non-negotiable charges. First, everything's going to be okay, which looking back was obviously meant for his son.
Right.
And second, write a good song for me, Steven. And then he repeated, I love you 4 times. Just zero ambiguity.
That was a lifetime of energy delivered in 60 seconds. The mission became crystal clear. Fulfill that final wish, and on a much deeper level, find a way to honor this explosive amount of love he had just lost. That necessity forced him to define his purpose, and it led to what I think is his most defining quote. Grief is only love that's got no place to go.
Okay, so if grief isn't an absence, but it's a bounty of energy, of love that needs an outlet, how does he make sure that energy is channeled into creation and not just, a raw emotional outpouring in a song?
And that is precisely where the scientific methodology comes in. In the face of absolute emotional chaos, his instinct wasn't to collapse. It was to reach for the most rational tool he had, his professional training. It's so fascinating that his background is in R&D as a food scientist.
That's right. He's a degree from MTSU. He worked at Mars, the food giant, and was part of the team that launched a pet food product called Dentistics Fresh.
Right.
So he was trained to be meticulous, hypothesis-driven, process-oriented.
Exactly. So when the trauma hit, he sort of metaphorically put on his lab coat. He entered researcher mode to process his pain. This is the foundation of his song scientist methodology. Instead of a song being a purely poetic thing, he treats it like a piece of data that's meant to prove an emotional truth.
Okay, so let's break that down. How does the scientific method translate into songwriting? It starts with observation and a hypothesis.
Correct. The observation is the emotional pain he's feeling, the grief. The hypothesis is the song title, or maybe the central idea. So, for instance, if the observation is this profound loneliness, the hypothesis might be, if I articulate this specific feeling, someone else will recognize it.
And then comes the testing phase. In a lab, you run tests. In music, he runs the song. He talks about playing new stuff in front of tiny crowds, 7 people here, 10 people there. So that immediate audience response, that's his instant data.
That feedback loop is what makes it so powerful for him. Traditional science can take months, years to get results. But in a writer's round, playing a new song, you get immediate emotional data. Do they flinch? Do they cry? Do they nod? That physical, visceral feedback tells him instantly if the hypothesis is true.
But the real hurdle here, I think, is what you mentioned earlier, truth detection and removing user bias. Explain that for the listener.
Well, in science, the researcher can't want the experiment to give a certain result.
Yeah.
You have to accept the objective truth, even if you hate it. For an artist, that means fighting the urge to write a comfortable lie. SWJ has to be willing to test his most painful memories in front of strangers to make sure the pain he's expressing is true for others, too. The bias he has to remove is his own internal desire for the trauma to feel less painful. The song only works if it confirms the painful truth.
That explains the weight, the authenticity of his songs. He's using the audience like a spectrometer to measure emotional purity. And there are concrete examples of this. He talks about playing Stand By Me just 2 weeks after his father died.
That performance was an instant authentication of his entire mission. He said he felt his father on my shoulders. The emotional response in that room confirmed that the energy, the love was present, and it was channeled correctly. And of course, the song that holds this entire thesis together is I'm a Song.
The ultimate confirmation. That was the track his father had loved the most, recorded at the Bluebird Cafe. And the sources have this incredible detail that his dad recorded it on a gigantic T-Mobile Sidekick.
A sidekick.
Yeah.
I mean, that detail just underscores the devotion, doesn't it? His dad loved that song so much he had captured it on a phone that was probably chunky even back then. And that piece of music, which Senior called his favorite song ever, became the foundational anthem for SWJ's life. He sang it at the funeral. It just cemented the intersection of his grief and his mission.
And moving beyond just the science of his art, he applied this same rational framework to processing the father-son dynamic itself.
Yeah, he sees that relationship as moving through 3 distinct phases. Phase 1 is idolize. That's childhood.
Yeah.
The father is a superhero, this unbreakable figure. For SWJ, that was mimicking the boxing.
Right, and then phase 2, demonize the teenage years, where the antagonism, the separation is actually necessary.
Exactly. Biologically, the son needs to break away, seek independence. You start seeing the father's flaws under a microscope. It leads to conflict. But the most important phase is phase 3, humanize.
Yeah.
That's adulthood. The realization that, oh, you're just a dude doing the best you can.
That moment of humanization must just relieve so much pressure. You can stop fighting this phantom of the past and just accept the actual human in front of you. And this connects perfectly to how he explains overcoming fear.
It does. His childhood involved a lot of quiet fear. He wanted to not affect the world because of the volatile men his mother was with. He connected that internal quietness to a lesson he learned much later from hunting.
The hunting analogy is so clarifying, especially for someone who struggles with anxiety. He describes sitting alone in the woods, pitch black, shotgun in his lap, an hour before sunrise. And every sound, every crackle is terrifying because you can't see the source.
But as the sun comes up, as you get light, as you get understanding, You see, the noise was just a squirrel. That scary shape was just a tree. The woods didn't change at all. Only his understanding of them did. And his conclusion is just so profound. Fear exists only in the absence of understanding.
So if fear is just a void of knowledge, you can apply your scientific method to it. You introduce data, and you remove the fear. This is a concept that guides his actions now as a stepfather to a young boy, Henry, who's into Muay Thai.
Right. He brings R&D data to that role because he was a stepchild multiple times. So he has this unique set of observations about what works and what doesn't. And his guiding principle is that good step-parenting, and love in general, is led by works, not words.
Action over just saying the words. So he focuses on doing the work of showing up, not just saying, I love you just like I love him.
And that leads him to recognize this paradox in close relationships. The old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. Pain. He acknowledges that, yeah, resentment can creep into the closest bonds because you know each other so well.
And the challenge isn't to fear that contempt, but to understand it, because that fear just comes from a lack of understanding about why those little resentments are there in the first place. You have to shine a light on it, just like in the woods.
It all comes back to his core realization.
Mm-hmm.
He is not stuck in any particular life.
Mm-hmm.
He was a scientist, he was a struggling writer, now he's an artist. Life is a series of chapters, and the rational tools he got from the lab became the very instruments that let him move past the most devastating trauma and honor his father's final charge in the process.
What a synthesis. I mean, Stephen Wilson Jr.'s career is defined by taking that final, powerful charge from his father, processing a bounty of love with nowhere to go, and using this rational method to unlock a profound emotional truth. His work is essentially building a structured scientific home for the grief and love that others have lost too.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, build right on SWJ's journey. If you internalize this belief that fear is only what you don't understand, and you commit to using rational methodological means, the scientific approach, if you will, to explore your deepest emotional pain, what personal truths might you unlock that could become the stable blueprint for your own next chapter?
Something to mull over as you move forward. Thank you for diving deep with us today.
We encourage you to continue your own deep dive into this fascinating intersection of science, sorrow, and song.